We are back here in the ever-sprawling Riverview Metropolitan Area, and in the most recent episode we implemented a major new highway weaving its way alongside one of the rivers. Definitely a bit of a controversial build that will need some changes based on the wonderful feedback I got from you guys, but today we're actually going to focus on satisfying our massive demand for more housing by building more housing than we've ever done before in the city, causing an actual population boom. We're also going to implement the result of the most recent votes, which after more than 10,000 votes cast settled on the museum/historical building option, which once again prompted me to jump into the asset editor and create something a little more customized for the city. And as always, if you enjoy my content, your like is very much appreciated. Thank you. So there are two primary reasons for wanting to build more housing. One of them is just a functional thing. Residential demand has just absolutely skyrocketed now that the city is starting to really settle with the Economy 2.0 update, which makes sense. We've got a lot of jobs, so we have a really high job availability. Our textures are quite good, and especially high density residential demand is just through the roof. We're not going to be able to satisfy that, but we're going to give it a go. So that's like the functional component. But there's also an aesthetic reason. Many of these areas, inner city areas that are actually quite low density, they're really old. I mean, I built this within the first couple of episodes, so they're basically from the early access days, which it's crazy to think about it, but it's almost been a year. So it's not that these areas are bad in any way, but I think, I made some decisions back then that I'd like to change. So one of it is that I've used these small lanes extensively throughout some of these inner city areas, and I'm going to keep some of them, but I'm going to be upgrading a handful of them to these 2-lane streets with parking, because I think they're a little more of a better fit in more suburban environments. So that's one change I'm going to make. But I'm also going to make changes to the actual road layout, because if we check this area here, Victoria Peak, and this is actually an area we have densified a couple of times before, there's just a lot of nothing in between these blocks here. And while that would be a lovely place to live with so much green space in between, medium and high density developments, let's be real, developers would not really, they wouldn't allow this. They would cram in more housing to make a bigger profit, especially in the early days of the city. So we're gonna create a bunch of like infill road so that we can really densify these areas. And if we move out here, in the case of Palmer Glade, we're actually going to be fully revamping this and get some, I guess you could say it's kind of like Section 9 public housing, a la New York style. I'm gonna provide a bunch of that as well to just get that low rent, high density housing in here. And I think ultimately this is just gonna be part of densifying Riverview so that we can also justify even more sprawl, because I mean, this city has it has more in common with New York and Manhattan than it does with like Houston. We have very little surface parking. We have a very quite a dense downtown core, so we might as well, just continue pushing in that New York direction. Also because my other series, East Haven County, also based in the United States, is a lot more low density, so I think it's a good contrast. And of course, the newly continued European city is a much lower density, so we'll have a bit of everything going on here on the channel. But I'm doing a lot of talking and not so much building, so let's just jump into revamping Palmer Glade. We're just gonna pause the game because we're gonna do some pretty serious changes here. And Palmer Glade very much has this issue of these alleyways where, it's very, very cozy, and I can only imagine these roads here being extremely valuable. They're all leveled, pretty much all leveled to level 5 as well. But I mean, I think the transition here is just too rough. It's too much of a contrast, and these lanes and low density housing don't make a lot of sense. Not anymore, at least. They used to, but Riverview is ever changing, so they don't anymore. So I'm gonna upgrade this street here or this alley rather, to a street. I had to use Anarchy there because I've used Anarchy when just building these originally, so yeah, it's not gonna allow me to just do a regular upgrade. And I think we're going to, we gotta be careful here. I have some beautiful housing placed. So I think, let's see, what are we going to do here? We are going to actually upgrade on this side and remove that public housing project, and probably see if we can grab this beautiful building here and just kind of squeeze it into the lot of this building here. I don't want to remove any of these buildings because the central gardens here are seeing some fantastic development. I was inspired by the like Upper West and Upper East Side buildings in New York, or on Manhattan, to be more specific, that face Central Park. Anyways, I am rambling about something else once again. Let's just... Oh, this is a mess. Can I can bring these roads together now. And then hopefully that's gonna be fine. So let's just move this in here, get that road connection going. And then we are actually just going to remove this area and road layout completely. Rebuild it from scratch. At least out until these lanes here. Actually, no, we're gonna do the whole thing. I'm gonna extend Strawberry Lane here down to make a connection down here, and then that's going to be our new transitionary point where we'll move into a bit of more low density. Let's see, because I don't really mind that we have some low density housing here on the main island within the highway loop. I think that adds a bit of character. And it's a really cool small thing to have, but I think it's not gonna be the majority. It's not gonna cover as much space as it currently does. And look at me imminently domaining all these poor people. Oh man, feels good to smash up some stuff because new things will grow, right? So yeah, we're gonna upgrade this to a street, and then we'll need to rebuild the road network. We are gonna continue Aspen Street here, and we're just gonna go straight at a 90-degree angle like that. It's going to flank the South Riverview High School perfectly, and then I'll be branching out from it so that I get a perfect 90 degrees. And it's going to get a bit messy here, but I'm just gonna continue it as much as I can to avoid any zoning issues. I think this is probably fine. And it gave a bit of a funky alignment down here, but that only serves to add a bit of character. So we are gonna have some dedicated Section 9 public housing. So I'm going to try and kind of designate blocks to each type of housing development here. I think as we move out here, we are gonna need to also upgrade this road. Yeah, actually there's this road here that kind of flanks the side of the river here, and then we are gonna need to bring this road into this road here, get rid of some... Whoa, that's... Oh, whoa, that went terribly wrong. So let's just try and create a connection here, and I'll just bring this one in. Yoink. So this is a much more of a simplified road layout, but I think when it develops, it's going to look like a more fitting extension of these other inner city areas. Let's see, we'll need an additional road because I'd like to designate, or try to designate, a park as well. Because I need that park space. So wait, that didn't work. What did I do wrong here? So the first node, and then we go up, second one, and we try to create this type of road layout here. And then we're going to designate this as a park. And this is gonna look a little funky. But I like to kind of break up the road layout a bit. It's gonna be a bit of a boring grid otherwise. So let's just see. I think if we designate this area here as row housing with some medium density mixed in, and then we have the public housing down here, I think that's going to be a pretty good look. And we're just gonna go for a 1-lane road here to cut through. I'm gonna use Anarchy so that I don't destroy any of the existing development, because I think that fits in rather nicely here. So this will be section 9 public housing. This will be a row house slash medium density development, more like I don't want to say organically grown, but I mean, in contrast to a completely pre-planned public housing, that's probably the best term. Here we're gonna have the park, and then we're probably gonna need some services as well, because you guys are going to kill me if I don't provide at least some education services in this episode here, because we have a massive deficit. We have one of the worst school systems in the US. Maybe, not sure about that, but we're gonna provide some service buildings. Don't worry. Anyways, I'm starting to like the road layout here. It's very basic, it's very simple, but I think with some added development, it's going to look pretty nice. Let's start with the public housing. So let's just find it. I want to manually place this because it's going to look like one uniform development. And so I don't really want anything left to circumstances. And I preferably want to use some of the buildings that do have a bit of dedicated parking, but not too much. So I don't want to use this building here, because you can see the footprint is 4x4, but the actual like building takes up about 2x2. So it's just weird density, right? Where the building's kind of tall, but you have a lot of surface parking. So I mean, in a way, it's very American, but I don't think that's what I want here. I want a bit of a better ratio. So maybe something like this is actually this is pretty much what I want, I guess. So I am going to just disable Anarchy and maybe even manually place these so that I can just bring them back a bit, and then we're gonna flip it and align it to the other road here, and then we might just about be able to, actually I'm gonna align it a little closer so that we won't have a footpath in between each of these two, but the next segment will have space or a path to kind of cut through this area. So instead of aligning this real close, we're gonna just create a bit of distance here. Place this down, and then the sister building is going to be placed just like in the other case, very close, but brought back a bit from the road. And then we've just about got space to place one additional building here. And we're just gonna place that here, yoink. Then maybe for an area like this, a dedicated low density commercial building to provide some basic needs would be a good situation. Also, just to ensure that this place isn't like a complete food desert, because that's not fun for anyone. So let's just get like a low density grocery store in here, brought back slightly from the road, but I don't want to wreck that big oak. Probably gonna kill it with a path instead. And something like this. And I guess it would actually be fitting with, one more of these like grocery stores over on this corner here. We might do let's just continue with the exact same zoning size, and then bring that slightly back and place that there. We're left with this empty lot here, so I think providing like some amenities in the shape of like some green space or a park would be very much appreciated by the local residents. So large playground. I don't even know if this is like a new asset. I think it is from the detailers patch, but either way, it's going to be a very nice fit. So I'm just gonna manually place that, and yeah, I think that's pretty good. Oh wait, we've also got space over here. Yeah, blind. Okay, the basketball court would be go-to, I suppose. So if we can just flip this and place that here. Ooh. Actually, we can move that a bit since this is at a bit of an angle. Just place that there. And then here we can just use the pathways in like a creative way to create like a bit of a little green space here. So let's actually just move in and do that. Just gonna grab the basic pavement path. Don't wanna, I don't wanna add like, actually I lied. I'm gonna create a custom path instead. it's not gonna take that long, and it's going to add a bit more character. So I think it's worth it. Might as well make some of these areas a little more detailed as well while we are already at it. Let's jump into surfaces and see what we can find. Probably gonna find like a basic tile surface. Let's see. Herringbone. I'm just gonna do a little tester. Yeah, I like that. We could go with that. Enable snapping so that it's going to be super easy for us to just snap this to wherever we want. And I wonder how it's, if I do an area like this, is that, yeah, that's actually going to cut into that space. I don't really want that. But so I'm just gonna align these, bring these surfaces out to the road here so that they're like actual surfaces, because then I can easily make custom surfaces here alongside Wood Street without interfering with the pavement, so that people can, you know, we gotta secure that people can get their gas guzzlers in here. Something like that. And then I'm just gonna try this again and see if this one actually just overrides. Does. Okay, so I'm not gonna do that, but like I said, I can connect now to the edge here. So let's just do that, and I'll just bring this all the way down here. And actually in this case, I think it's fine. We just connect all the way over here to the part here. And obviously I'm gonna have to do a little alignment here because this is looking weird. But I think for now, let's just get this through. Well, yeah, it certainly has its own look now with these tiles, which I haven't used before, so that's like my main reason for putting them to use. We only need some connected pedestrian paths now, as well as, yeah, lots of trees, right? A million trees. Or two. So we're just gonna connect these paths up so that we will actually see some usage of them. Using the invisible pedestrian paths here. I think that is actually, we can make a path here as well. And that pretty much covers the connection we're looking to make. And then the next one is just going to be some trees and some bushes. So they planted some quite substantial oaks back then. Actually, let's just go for this size here. And I'll be adding a few of these throughout. I also added like this little, I mean, it's not a campsite, it's just somewhere you can gather and, you know, throw a few sausages or a steak on the barbecue here, if you would like to do that. So it's just a little extra amenity. Don't want to go too heavy on the oaks here, because they are going to end up covering up the entire area then, which is really not the plan. Although I'm gonna enable Anarchy so that I can just squeeze one more of these bad boys in here. So I think something like this, and then I'll just be adding some bushes throughout as well. Cherry on top is going to be some stain decals. I love using these, and this is not by any means or stretch of the imagination a newly built, modernized area. It's a little rundown. It's yeah, a little rough around the edges. I don't think it's a bad place to live. I think just with like much of the Section 9 housing, at least on Manhattan in New York, it's actually quite a good place. You know, humble folks just trying to get by and not be completely decimated by the market rates of the rents set by society. So this is actually a place that is relatively livable because it is quite cheap, and I imagine that the waiting lists to actually live in a place like this are also quite substantial, which I also think they are for public housing in New York, probably more so than in Riverview. I'm not saying that we've got the same demand here, but I think the city has so much going for it that we can only assume that with this level of development and this level of density that we've been developing recently and that we're only expanding upon now, it is quite a desirable place to live, even though your kids will never ever be able to attend a school. Let's move on to developing the block here on the opposite side of Sterling Street, facing these District 9 towers here. And I think what I want to do is have a bit of a fun mix. So I'm going to grab the alley road here, and then I'm going to try and just, yeah, I'm going to need a little Anarchy magic, but I think that's fine. So I'm just going to bring this through here. And then what we'll have is predominantly a mix between row house and medium facing the actual streets. And then we'll have row housing in here at that very narrow lane. So I know I don't want too many lanes in like the downtown area, but I think I'm gonna use some strategically to really represent very, very old parts of the city that haven't been redeveloped for a long time. I'm hopeful that I can pretty much just zone my way out of this, and if I can't, then I am certainly going to be applying some changes so that it is going to look all right. But I think for now I'm just going to see if I get some mixed housing in here with some medium density. So a 3x4, a 2x4, a 3x3, and we might even see if we can squeeze in a bigger building here and get one more of these 3x3s. And I'm probably going to move in and just manually be changing some of these when they develop. But I think it's pretty good to just start with just letting it move in through zoning, and then I can just upgrade with find it afterwards. So let's just get this new part of the city here developed. That is actually pretty good. I don't really want to change any of the existing buildings that I'll be keeping with new ones, but I guess I just want to tune down a few of the bigger ones. So for instance, we've got this building here where I think that if we were to just move in and like add a parking lot or two, that would probably kind of solve the issue I'm seeing here. I need a bit of surface parking. They even have that in New York, so we're gonna have that here as well. Maybe a bit of surface parking. Can I kind of break up? Let's see if I've got this custom stuff here. I might be able to. Actually, we're gonna keep this corner building. I think that's fine. I think that's just fine, and we're gonna keep this one as well. So I'm just adding this parking in here. And then we'll get in some of these oak trees here because I think they're gonna look really great in an area like this. So I'm just gonna add them where we've got a bit of open space between some of the buildings here. There's obviously not a lot, so that's fine. Then I'll be switching, I think, to this linden tree here, add in a few of those as well alongside Hawthorne Lane here, which I guess is turning out really cozy. It's kind of like a small, quiet lane in the heart of the city. Not bad at all. Let's actually take a little first-person tour now that I've finally got the mod of this area. So I've just disabled the sound, so you're not gonna have loud cars interfering with everything, but let's drop down here and try to get onto the pavement quickly before we die. So I think this is looking east, this is looking north. So we've got downtown in there. It's a nice sunny day. All right. Let's just walk in here because we should have Hawthorne Lane right up here, as we've got this corner row house building here and this medium density. So let's just take a quiet little walk here, people out walking their dogs. And so this is Hawthorne Lake, and it's looking very lane, sorry, and it's looking very, very cozy indeed. But what I think I want to do is just make my way over to the new Section 9 public housing we built. Maybe I should actually sprint, just avoiding these people. It's like a game in itself. Let's just get across the street as well. It's looking pretty good. I'll need to fix that mountain back there. That looks terrible from afar. Yeah, I think these mountain ranges here probably look a little better. We've got some more public housing here, which I may revamp, but we'll see. So I'll need to cross the street. You're not gonna wait for me? No. And these are the new tiles we've used. The no surface here. I think that's looks pretty good actually, even up close. Scandic Baron is not really what I'd expected. You know, I wanted a grocery store, but this sounds like a, you know, a fancy furniture outlet or something like that. But I guess that's okay. We've got some taxis driving around. I think I grabbed a mod so that I now also have these yellow SUVs as taxis, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, it's looking pretty nice. Okay, so our education coverage is so bad that I probably have to provide just a bit more. We've got some space here, which we're using for nice recreational park landscaping. Actually, it's just a path with some trees. But I think we can squeeze in, yeah, we can squeeze in the urban high school here. So I think we're gonna do it and just make it part of the Riverview High complex we've already got going here. Let's see, just gonna... Let's see, we can actually get a path through here, or maybe just extend this lane, which would probably be preferable. So get that placed and expand this lane here so we've got some easy access. And yeah, upgrade wise, I think I'm just gonna keep it without any upgrades out here, because I am going to need to use these urban high schools a couple of times throughout the city to just provide a bit more high school coverage. And I think it would be fitting that we build one such high school a little closer to downtown, and then we're gonna give it the full upgrades so that it essentially looks like a different asset and we have a bit more variety. Our quest for densification continues, but I think we're gonna take a little detour from this area here and just densify the blocks we've got here, because yeah, once again, paths and trees is a nice addition, but this is probably an area that we just need a bit more, you know, densification here. I'm gonna use this one-way road again. I want to implement a few more of these throughout Riverview, because I think it's a nice addition. It adds more variety to our road layout, but it's also quite realistic in like an American context. And this is going to be a terrible crossing. Yeah. Maybe we should upgrade this to a one-way segment instead. Actually, it has a bus stop, doesn't it? Yeah, that's not really going to work, is it? It's going to mess with the tram line here. But I think, yeah, this is not gonna work. Okay. Let's pivot for a moment. And maybe just bring that down here. Like so, then we'll remove this segment. Yeah, I had that for 30 seconds and it already caused an issue due to the amount of buses that traverse here alongside Sycamore Street. So it's probably good to kind of just call a mulligan on that, to quote one of the greatest City Skylines YouTubers we have. But we've now got this small cozy summit street, and that is obviously going to allow us to zone some more stuff and just densify this a little bit. I think I'm just gonna pause here and get rid of some of this development here, and then we'll get a medium density into this slot, some row housing, and then we are gonna add a key here and remove it so that we can get a bit extra medium density and some row housing in here. And we're gonna do the same with the key wall on this side. Something like this is what I'll be going for, I think. Actually, I want to better align this to, what is this street called? Oh, I can't see it right now, but we just bring this up here, then that is probably what I want. So we'll have some mixed use here and a bit of mixed use here, and then we'll just go for some row housing. Oh wait, that was actually medium density. Whoops. Then we'll go for a medium density development here. It's gonna be a bit of a chunky one, and some row housing on either side. Please scratch that. Can I make this a bit of a small corner here? Just cut in here. There we go. And more row housing. We're actually gonna jump into a time-lapse segment with some voice over for once, because I just found out that about 2 hours of recording has been ruined by like a faulty connection in my microphone or something. So there's a lot of background noise and stuff. Annoying, but I don't want to redo all this footage. That would take me half the day, so voiceover it is. Anyways, what you're seeing me try to build here is an elementary school. We've got this new small elementary school through the detailers patch, and what I'm trying to do is just add the sub-buildings with Anarchy so that I'm creating a one single big structure. And I actually think it turns out all right in the end, and it provides about 800 capacity-wise, which of course it isn't as much as the regular elementary school, but I need more asset variety in a city this size. And I think the good thing here is that if I quote-unquote customize this small elementary school enough with these sub-buildings, then it's also going to be easier for me to use the same asset in other places of the city, but just combine the sub-buildings in different ways so that that is also gonna look like a unique elementary school. And I guess if we actually moved in with the recolor mod, we could also make sure that all of these elementary schools have slightly different colors to make it even, more diverse. Now, to my surprise, this actually ends up looking pretty realistic and a really interesting looking structure. I even go as far as squeezing in the small high school also from the detailers patch. And besides a bit of an odd looking pool, in the backyard between some of these buildings, it actually ends up looking all right. And I even go as far as adding a sub-building to the high school just across the street as well, just like a small office connected to it or whatever, but it helps create a slightly more unique look as well, and of course it does bring in some additional high school capacity, which we desperately need. After that, we begin the development of yet another block, and this one I want to kind of replicate the style of the first mixed block we did, where we have this lane in between with row houses, but I just want to kind of lower the overall density. So we're switching from having some deeper than 2-tile lots with some bigger housing units to pretty much just have 2-tile deep everywhere basically, except for the small part of the block where the high school extension is placed. What this allows me to do is of course bring a gradual lowering of the density of the city, so that as we move further and further south from the downtown core, we are seeing a mixture where we have less and less high density, less and less medium density, until we have primarily row house density, and on the final transition to low density. And I think this block turns out all right. It kind of captures that transition I was hoping for. after all this inner city stuff, I kind of felt the need to transition, so we are switching gears to actually develop some more suburban low density developments, primarily on the eastern outskirts of the metro area. Because this large area just east of East Riverview, the density transition here is a little too sharp, as we've been densifying the three cities, New Chelsea, East Riverview and Riverview. I think the transition here is just, it's too drastic. We move very, very quickly from medium density and row house density to not just like suburban low density, but more so to actual rural countryside. So we have a couple of farms that are like, they're maybe half a mile from the actual downtown of East Riverview, which is probably a little too close. This also allowed me to, of course, redo the road network out here so that we get a more dense suburban neighborhood. And importantly, also upgrade some of the lanes to actual roads with parking or the ability to place planters, because as I said earlier, I don't want to use lanes everywhere. I might have just overused them in some places because I feel they're very, very cozy, but I think it's probably going to be better aesthetically if I have a mixture of the two. As far as actually like detailing and zoning these areas here, it's going to be very, very simple cookie cutter stuff. I'm just going to zone low density North American residential everywhere, but I will see a better diversity in the level 1 buildings that are going to grow, because I went into the asset editor and I repurposed a bunch of level 3 buildings to level 1 buildings, because that's just going to create more variety. And I'm kind of sick of the repetition we are seeing whenever you zone a big area, and for the longest time it's just level 1. There's going to be a lot of repetition in the buildings there, so it's just a little trick I've done to kind of get a little more variety. Bit of a spontaneous decision here to add in a lake at this awkwardly sized empty space here. I want to add more lakes and just natural features that kind of break up the landscape a bit and create some natural barriers for development. And I think lakes in particular are really good at this. They are very interesting to look at, like visually, due to like how the dark blue is kind of a striking contrast to all this concrete pavement and just green grassy fields we have everywhere. They're fun to build. I'm absolutely terrible at managing the water features tool to try and fill them up. So whenever you see me build a lake, rest assured that I've messed it up a couple of times and flooded half the city first. But I get there eventually by some reloading, and it turns out looking all right. I also fixed the lake we have a little further south of this in East Riverview, because it had kind of drained. Don't really know why, but I get it fixed and it looks pretty good. I'll be slapping on some music now, and what you'll basically see is me doing the very simplest forms of detailing to these large suburban areas just to make them look good, at least from a distance, as well as adding a few new housing developments. Before we wrap up with a small commercial strip to just supply a bit of shopping, a few amenities to this area here where we obviously have new people moving in. The commercial district I keep relatively simple, and I made sure to choose commercial assets that already have surface parking so that I don't have to build any myself. Anyways, enough expansion. We're gonna jump into implementing the result of the city vote, where you guys choose the historic building slash museum kind of thingy. A very interesting choice, and it put me in a bit of a challenging situation because I initially thought I'd just use one of these custom college or high school models. But we've already implemented them a couple of places throughout the city, so we'd have a bit of repetition here. So what I eventually settled on was to actually use the city hall. But as you can probably see, if I can match my voice to the clips I'm showing you guys at least, the city hall is just a massive asset, not due to the actual size of the building, but more so the footprint with all this landscaping. So I did the quick and dirty asset editor trick of kind of cloning the city hall into a smaller version and just removing all of this landscaping and all of that stuff, so that what I'm left with is a functional, slightly cheaper, but not by a lot, functional city hall building, which I can then place, and then we can do the landscaping and the detailing ourselves. So when placing it, I kind of wanted to restrict myself more or less to the size of this empty lot, because that's kind of the premise that you guys voted on. So I think it's only fair to you guys that we actually kind of keep ourselves to this size. I did have to remove a couple of buildings just to get enough space for it. But after placing it, I also just kind of realized that the surrounding area, these surrounding blocks, they probably deserve a bit of redevelopment. They are very old, and there's a few too many of these small lanes here and like kind of dead space that isn't really used for anything. And we are really in a central location of Riverview. I mean, we're actually in the downtown district in game. So this place should be a little more dense. It should have a little more like roadside parking and stuff like that. So I jumped into trying to just kind of revamp the area and actually try zoning it instead of manually placing it, which turned out to be a bit difficult because I didn't go for like a strict 90-degree angle grid, which is always gonna cause issues when I don't do that. But afterwards, I tried to zone it, let it grow, and then would jump into some very light, simple detailing of the, well, it's technically a small city hall, but if you guys have any suggestions for what it should be otherwise, then please let me know. It could be a museum or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be a city hall, to me at least. And we're back with some live play now, hopefully with no issues with the microphone. And maybe to the dismay of some of you, I'm sure the voiceover parts were a little more coherent than when I'm live playing, but I just really don't enjoy voiceovering, at least not currently. So things are working again, and we're ready to assess what we've been building here. A bit of an odd mix of buildings, try to use the small zoning tricks, using the pathways here to align zones to some streets and whatnot. It's definitely not perfect, so there are like two approaches we can take to go from here. Either I start manually placing the stuff I want with public robles. Alternatively, we try to do like a bit of detailing with maybe the surface painter and stuff like that, and we see if that is actually going to be, something that can kind of fix this area up. So I think I'm kind of inclined to try the first thing, because I guess that's a vanilla-friendly approach. Not that we're trying to be vanilla-friendly, but it's a fun challenge as well. So this building here, which for whatever reason didn't align with the surface, even though it's mixed use, I've just done a little alignment there myself then. And then maybe down here, we'll just do the very same thing, kind of align this ever so slightly to the corner. We've got a bit of an open space here, and this is always the slightly awkward bits, right? But maybe adding in like a little path and some trees is gonna look all right. I think we're gonna give that a go. Obviously, it's not gonna be the best in terms of like the density we discussed earlier, but yeah, I'm just trying to work with what I got here. And I don't want to do like too much surface painting detailing either. So if we've got that in place, then let's go grab some different types of trees of different sizes and just try and add that in here. And just kind of check how that actually looks and if it's gonna work. And then maybe just a decal, stain decal, go for some of these large ones, just trying to kind of add that in there. Get this parking lot completely smashed up with stains. I think would be fitting. We've got a bit of a spot here where we're probably good to maybe expand some of the surfaces and then just add in some shrubs and bushes at other parts, just to make it a little unkempt and random here. And the same thing down here, I think. Maybe adding in just a bit of like invisible parking is going to do the final trick here, and then we can assess if it actually works. But yeah, of course, as I'm starting to add in this parking, I'm technically starting to add in the details. So yeah, I'm not really sure if I'm proving a point here. I'm probably not, but yeah, whatever. We'll just place these down, and then I'm going to make sure it's all connected. Move in here, grab this road here, and just connect that up to this street. Get rid of some of the stuff here that's... What is this even? Oh, wait, it was just the show markers was on, despite the menu being gone. I don't really know why. Anyways, I think that got that sorted out. We should see people start using that parking in just a moment. So yeah, the question is, does it work? I think it works all right. It looks all right. It's a bit of an odd mixed block, and it probably isn't as dense as I proclaimed I wanted to. But yeah, I like trying to get the zone stuff to work a little better, because I don't want to be super dependent on having to manually place everything. So I'm gonna try and break up this zoning situation here as well. Maybe enabling Anarchy, we can kind of just move this around so that I can actually get some row house zoning kind of facing this street here. I think that would be nice. We can get some mixed use right in there. We can get a bit of mixed use here. We can get some... Can we get a bit of medium density? Oh yes, we can. And then just zone the rest up. And who's complaining? Oh, these guys are complaining. But that fixed then. And to detail this, maybe City Hall, I'm thinking less is more. So we're gonna do with some fences or hedges alternatively. Probably gonna go for a fence actually, see if I can find something that looks a little fancy. What's this chopper making all the noise? Oh, it's from the hospital, of course. But where is it hovering? It's very loud. Am I blind? Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, so it's gone now. Think I'm just gonna use this one. Alright, I'm just gonna build a segment and check. Yeah, I mean, okay, that's probably a little too suburban for our needs, so we're not gonna go with that one. We are gonna grab this white one instead. Disable markers, so I don't have all this stuff in my face. And then we're just gonna frame in this nicely manicured grass so that you can't access it. Actually, I want people to be able to access it, so I'm not gonna... We're just gonna do the outer line here. Yeah. And then I think I want like small flower beds throughout some of this manicured grass. So what I'm thinking we could do is grab a decal. Hopefully, I think I have like a detail that could, yeah, this could pass as like mulch basically. So I'm gonna add some of this at random points, and then we're gonna have some flowers and whatnot in these, make it look real pretty. Maybe have a few over here as well. Have a big cluster here. Something like this, and then we'll see how this actually looks. Moving in, and we'll just grab some wild flowers and start kind of placing these. And I need to be careful to like let some of the mulch or whatever we're role playing this to be actually kind of poke through, because that's like the whole point, right? That looks pretty nice. I think we just need a few trees kind of mixed in to really complete the look. So we're going to add around the place here just to get some trees in wherever we can kind of fit them. And then it's gonna be a tree that doesn't like detract from these decorations here. So maybe we could go for like a pine. That's a tree type I'm not using all that much, but I think it looks all right. And it's kind of tall and slender, so I think it's a pretty good fit for this type of development here, as we're trying to avoid covering up too much detailing with them. And I think we're gonna call the detailing at that. Pretty simple stuff, but I really think it works, and it makes it a little easier to see what type of detailing we've done. Of course, if we choose to like rebrand this to a museum based on one of the suggestions of you guys, we can add a bit more detailing, maybe like a small food court, like some signage and stuff like that. But for now, we're gonna keep it pretty generic. Okay, so the only thing left for us to do is fill in the park here. At least that's what I'm gonna do as the final thing, because otherwise this episode is just gonna spiral out of control as they usually do and get way too long, leaving me with a long editing mess. So I'm actually gonna see if I can fit one of the like standard parks in here at first. We did get a bunch of new ones with the detailers patch, and maybe this... Oh, I think we can actually, if we just twist this guy around, we can fit in the new multi-purpose park that they provided to us for free with the patch, which is gonna be pretty cool. So let's just get this aligned as well as we can and have a look. That's actually a pretty cool park. It has a bit of everything. We don't really need to do like any detailing or something like that, so that's pretty nice. Just gonna get rid of these oak trees here, and then I think it's probably just a matter of connecting up these paths here so that the park looks well integrated with the actual lot here. So I'm just gonna go the quick and dirty way at first, connecting up each of these the edges here. But then the park also has some of these curvy roads throughout, where I think if we kind of try and continue those, then that's going to look like a natural extension of the park as well. We've got one here. This one I think we can... I don't think we should do that one. It's just gonna... Well, actually, we'll start with this one. Enable snapping so that I'm snapping to the right place, and then just disable it. Find the angle and connect it up to the road here. I think down here we're just gonna enable Anarchy and do a direct connection like this. Yeah, that looks fine. And we've got Jangle up here as well. And I think we've got one additional spot here, and we could do something a little more interesting here by like going out, but then actually if we go with this tool here, and that's probably gonna look even more interesting. Just gonna connect this up like that. And then all that's left to do is make this final little connection here. All right, I think that's pretty good. I don't want to add any surfaces to the surrounding area here, and I'm actually going to keep most of the greenery because I kind of look this setup where the outskirts of the park is a little more wild and has just kind of grown freely, and then you've got the central bits here which are obviously well organized, providing some of these amenities to people. So we're just going to add a layer of these big old trees to kind of surround it, maybe move in and grab some of these London planes as well, just to add into the mix. We probably need a few bushes down in this direction, but otherwise I think really good. Is it a new park? No. Nothing out here is new. Some of the older areas of the entire city will need some stain decals as well, just to add that bit of extra character as well. I think the school complex here that's probably a bit newer. That looks a little more modern, I think, than the rest. But otherwise, yeah, it's all about these decals here, just to add to the character of this area. And I think that's actually gonna be it. I mean, I think the revamp we've done here is very successful. I really like this area a lot more than before. All it needed was just a bit more love and some more thoughtful planning of these blocks, and I just think the transition here from the downtown core to this area is much better now. I am considering actually revamping this block here, because this is some very simple looking public housing-ish stuff I built a while ago. We may want to repurpose this into something else, so I was considering just doing like a mixed use block as I've done here. But if you guys have some other ideas for what we can place here, then feel free to let me know in the comments. I am considering actually removing it. But yeah, that's it for this episode. We're obviously not done revamping some of the older, less detailed sections of Riverview. We've got a ton of them throughout, but it's gonna be like a continuous process, and I'm pretty happy with the start we've got going here. We're definitely gonna be looking up north here to also give Victoria Peak a bit of a revamp, but the changes we've made thus far have really ramped up our population boom, so I think that's really nice, and of course it makes this area much more aesthetically pleasing. So, without further ado, I'll be shooting some cinematics for you guys, and thank you guys so much for the support and yeah, all the feedback, all the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.